About some of the other ways you've been in the news lately, and you know about this. There's been this feud this week with Late Show host David.
We must.
No, I know, but there's been a feud this week with David Letterman over some comments he made about your family, some jokes about your daughter in particular. I'm just curious, how did you hear about the comments and the jokes? Were you watching, or did someone tell you about them?
No, the next day I had an interview with John Ziegler on his new radio show, and he asked me about a comment that Letterman had made regarding my appearance as a slutty flight attendant. And my first thought was, hey, don't disparage flight attendants. They work hard. We love them. You know, how condemning of them. Don't say such a thing. And then I found out later that the comment that was made about statutory rape of my 14-year-old daughter Willow, knowing that crossed the line, and then others chiming in on other comments that Letterman has made. Just, quite I think, a sad commentary on where we are as a culture, as a society, to chuckle and laugh through comments such as he had made the other night. I think it's quite unfortunate.
Since David Letterman's not here, let me just say that he did not mention Willow by name, and he then went on to say he was not referring to your 14-year-old daughter. I do want to read this statement that you released. Go ahead.
Okay, Matt, I would say that you and anybody else are extremely naive to believe that very convenient excuse of David Letterman's the other day. It took a couple of days for him to think of that excuse that, no, he wasn't talking about my daughter who was there with me at the game, the 14-year-old. He was talking about some other daughter. Well, I think that's a weak excuse. And regardless, it was a degrading comment about a young woman. And I would hope that people really start really rising up and deciding it's not acceptable. No wonder young girls especially have such low self-esteem in America when we think that it's funny for a so-called comedian to get away with being able to make such a remark as he did.
You issued a statement.
That's acceptable.
Governor, at the end of your statement, you said that a joke like this contributes to the atrociously high rate of sexual exploitation of minors by older men who use and abuse others. Now, it was a joke. It was probably, by most standards, in bad taste. But can you really connect the dots to criminal activity the way you did in that statement?
I connect the dots to a degrading statement made about young women, and that does contribute to some acceptance of abuse of young women. Let me read to you something that I received in the middle of the night, an email from somebody who's not a known feminist, not someone who is an activist, but this, I think, speaks to this issue. This person wrote that, hey, the women organizations across America, they are starting to rise up and say enough is enough, and that was a ridiculous comment, and yeah, it was a so-called joke, but it wasn't funny. This email says every male organization, civic, religious, etc., should rise up and shout in defense of their daughters, their sisters, their mothers. We're in a position to encourage the whole country to take a stand against the disrespect shown to females. No wonder girls have such low self-esteem when people laugh at the innuendos and downright crudeness of comments made to and about them. Shame on all of us if we haven't had the nerve to walk out or at least boo when a so-called comedian makes such a comment.
When you were asked if you might appear on David Letterman's show to hash all this out, your spokesperson issued a statement and said the Palins have no intention of providing a ratings boost for David Letterman by appearing on his show. Plus, it would be wise to keep Willow away from David Letterman. I'd like you to explain what that meant. Are you suggesting that David Letterman can't be trusted around a 14-year-old girl?
Hey, take it however you want to take it. It is a comment that came from the heart that Willow, no doubt, would want to stay away from David Letterman after he made such a comment, and you can interpret that however you want to interpret it.
Well, but is that not perhaps in bad taste also, Governor, if you're suggesting that a 62-year-old man couldn't be trusted?
It's not in bad taste. Hey, maybe he couldn't be trusted because Willow's had enough of this type of comments, and maybe Willow would want to react to him in a way that maybe would catch him off guard. That's one way to interpret such a comment.
He's tried to explain this. Does he owe you an apology?
Here's the problem, Matt. The double standard that has been applied here. One, let's talk politically, the double standard. First, remember in the campaign, Barack Obama said, family's off limits. You don't talk about my family. And the candidate who must be obeyed, everybody adhered to that, and they did leave his family alone. They haven't done that on the other side of the ticket, and it has continued to this day. So that's a political double standard. But here again, the double standard when it comes to acceptance of a celebrity being able to get away with a disparaging comment that does erode a young girl's self-esteem and does contribute to some of the problems that we have in society. This so-called humor, I don't find it humorous.
Well,
I think a lot of Americans don't think that it's.
And I would agree with that. And I'm not sure that you can be so easy to say that he's gotten away with it. I think he will pay some sort of a price for this, Governor, because I do think a lot of people feel the joke was an extremely bad taste, no matter which daughter of yours he was referring to. Does he owe you an apology as opposed to just the explanation he's issued?
He doesn't have to apologize to me. I would like to see him apologize to young women across the country for contributing to that kind of that thread that is throughout our culture that makes it sound like it's okay to talk about young girls in that way, where it's kind of okay, accepted, and funny to talk about statutory rape. It's not cool, it's not funny.